they had like a smaller venue called B2, and I remember we really wanted to play Brickmakers. We were like, oh, we're gonna sell it out. For fuck's sake. We're gonna sell it out and like all this kind of stuff.
This podcast is all about you, your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new record you have coming out.
All right, appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thank you. Tell me about what you're in LA now, right?
Orange County.
Oh,
So
Orange County, same, similar.
pretty much LA. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
same
from
thing.
San Diego, so I know a little bit about Southern California, but I've moved recently to Nashville, so not in
Nice.
SoCal anymore, but grew up there, born and raised there. But you weren't born and raised in Orange County, were you?
No.
No. Tell me about where you grew up.
I'm from the UK. I'm from England.
Yeah.
Born and raised in a small town called Wymondham, which is kind of close to Cambridge, I guess. And lived there until I was like 13, and myself and my family moved to Scotland. And
oh wow.
Yeah, that's kind of where I had my teenage years. But yeah, I always kind of identify as growing up in England. I mean, that's kind of, that's where I was born and where I was raised. So yeah, and then ever since I just kind of lived all over the place.
Sure. From Wymondham to Scotland, was it weird? I mean, I'm not too familiar as far as the UK goes. Is it similar in a sense, living in Scotland versus living in Wymondham, or no, not at all?
I mean, there's obviously similarities because the UK is in essence just very small everywhere. Nothing kind of compares to the magnitude of America. But yeah, Wymondham is a small town outside of a city called Norwich, which is kind of close to Cambridge as well. I always say Cambridge because that's what a lot of people in America know because of the universities and stuff.
Right, right.
But yeah, it was very different because in Scotland it was I lived on a farm, and
oh wow.
Yeah, it was in like the middle of nowhere, and there was nothing around. So going from kind of like a small city to a farm at that kind of pivotal moment in a teenager's life around 13, 14, kind of coming of age kind of time to move into like the middle of nowhere, it was definitely different. But yeah, I did it right.
Yeah, was it something that where you like, I would imagine, because I just did this to my 13-year-old, is we moved to Nashville. So he grew up, born and raised in San Diego, and then we moved clear across the whole country, and he's kind of have to start over here. Was it hard to kind of pick up and move to a completely new country? I mean, you're in a different country at this point, right? I mean,
essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, life is, I like to think of life as like, I mean, it's a lot of ebb and flow. I think it's just kind of how you, I mean, when you're younger, it's a lot different, but as you get older, you kind of come to realize that everything is still accessible. If worst comes to worst, I can jump on a flight, or I can drive somewhere now. And but back then, around 13, 14, it was definitely like, it felt like my whole world was changing.
Sure.
But yeah.
Well, how did you get into music? Were you doing music prior to moving to Scotland?
Yeah, I mean, the school that I went to in England was heavily focused on the arts. So like,
that's cool.
Yeah, like music, actual art, like drawing and stuff like that, and then also what they call drama, which I think kind of falls under the line of acting in a way.
We had drama in my school.
Yeah,
where it's like, I mean, plays and acting. And
in this day and age, whenever you say drama, you think of like two people fighting. But
right, no, that's funny. I never thought about that. Yeah, like drama class weird. Probably isn't really associated the same way anymore as it was 25 years ago.
Yeah, it does feel weird saying it now, but
drama class, that's funny.
But yeah, so I went to that school, and that was kind of my first kind of exposure per se to music or the arts in general. And I was in a few bands like as like a kid and stuff. We did like a few like gigs and a few shows, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's funny. It was real funny. But
are your parents artistic or musical? I mean, to send you to a music school, that's pretty. I mean, not music school, but a more of an artistic school.
yeah, they're not they're not musical. I'm kind of like the first one in our family out of the whole family to be pursuing in music. I mean, there's a lot of like my family is just kind of in the routine kind of jobs out of school or university, which, hey, nothing wrong with it. Like
Right.
sometimes I wish I had a 9 to 5 job, but yeah, I'm kind of the first one to just kind of just say fuck it and just go like super left field. But yeah, I think the in the process of choosing the school, I guess it was the one in closest proximity to where I was born and raised. So I don't think there was any real intention of being like, we want our kids to be doing music and that kind of thing. It was just by chance.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, super cool.
That is cool. What was your
Yeah.
first instrument you learned? Were you like a piano player growing up?
Guitar.
Guitar. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even in the bands early on, guitar.
Yeah, and then they were mostly like more when I think about it, I feel so weird. It was mostly like heavier music, which is really strange for a 13, 14, 15-year-old to be into. But I started doing screamo, man. Like I did vocals for a bit.
Oh, that's
Yeah, bro.
awesome.
Yeah, before my voice had even broke, I was ruining my vocal cords. But
What
yeah,
bands were you into? Like what were you trying to mimic?
It started off with like Green Day, right? When I was
Okay.
like way young.
Yeah, that was the first band I ever got into. That's so cool that you said that.
That's like I feel like Green Day are like the gateway drug to
Yeah.
to the heavier stuff, and then bro, it all went downhill. It was just like started to like Alisana, which were like this like pop
Yeah.
punk kind of screamo shit,
Uh-huh.
and then it just took a dive to like Cannibal Corpse and just like
Damn.
Slipknot. It
That's
just went
quite
down and down and down.
that's quite the dive.
Yes, sir. But hey, it was all relative,
Uh-huh.
I think that kind of angst and that aggression while you're a kid going through puberty, at least a young boy, like I think that was that was just my way of expressing myself, just screaming.
Sure. I mean, that's funny because a lot of kids get into that or punk rock around those
Yeah.
ages. It's like more of the, against authority type deal.
No one knows what authority is, but everyone wants to rebel against it when you're
Right,
13. So
right.
yeah.
Can you believe my parents are making me like clean up my bedroom?
Yeah, it was a wild time. Wild time.
Wow. So you're in some bands then before you moved to Scotland.
Yeah.
Okay. What were these shows you said you guys played a few gigs? Was it like Battle of the Bands or?
Same kind of vibe, It was yeah, it was there was a venue in Norwich called Brickmakers,
Mhm.
and it was kind of like a pub bar, but then they also had this really cool like music venue in it. And then on the side of it they had like a smaller venue called B2. And I remember we we really wanted to play Brickmakers. We were like, oh, we're gonna, we're gonna sell it out. Fuck's sake. We're gonna sell it out and like all this kind of stuff. And we went there and they were like, you can play the second venue. And we were like, oh, like, okay, cool. And bear in mind, we were like 14, 15 at this time, right? We had no idea how any of this worked.
Sure.
And yeah, we played the second venue. We must have bought like 30, 40 people. Like at school, we were like peddling tickets and things like that. And yeah, and then there was a few others. I can't remember the specifics, but that was the first one.
It
And
was probably
yeah,
a big day, right? Big moment.
bro, I was shaking. I was the whole day I was shaking and just like so nervous. And yeah, it was crazy. It was really really weird to have that be like I guess my first experience of like concerts or live shows.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's rad. Did that all change when you moved to Scotland, being in a farm?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I left the bands,
Mhm. The
or the
band broke
band.
up.
Yeah, no, that's the crazy thing. Real quick, just a quick side note is
No, I'd
it
love to hear
did,
it.
and I was actually in the UK a couple of years ago working on some songs, and I'm just in this random Starbucks, and this guy who's like 6'5". I mean, I'm just under 6 foot, right? But this guy who like towers above me, just like walks up and it's like, Bradley? And I'm like, you know, when you see someone and they're really familiar, but you can't like pinpoint
Right.
where you know them from. And at this point, bro, I'd been touring like constantly. So I'd met and seen all these people, and I was like, maybe I met him at a show, like somewhere, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
He's like, yeah, I'm Jacob. And I was like, holy shit, it's the bassist from like my old band.
Oh my gosh.
Just by chance in a Starbucks. And yeah, that was wild. But yeah, that was
that's cool. That's really cool. He's probably stoked on how successful you've become.
I mean, we still talk, and you know, the other people in the band, it's just, yeah, it's funny, man. We look back at how naive we were. But yeah, moving to Scotland, obviously the band broke up, and then just being kind of confined and away from, not on purpose, but like, you know, just by chance again, where I was, like on the farm in the middle of nowhere, I instantly just turned to having a computer and making computer music, right? Because that's all I did. Like the only thing to really do on a farm when you're like 15 is like just go on the internet. So yeah, that's farm. Kind of, yeah. Huh?
I said or farm.
Yeah, I'm not. Yo, actually, I did lambing once, like helping lambs and sheep like give birth.
Oh my gosh.
Wild. Absolutely wild. You'd like stay up all night and like
get birth these lambs.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, man. It was crazy. But yeah, that's kind of where I fell in love with, kind of got addicted to like being glued to a computer and really learning how to make music on a computer, I guess.
What was the first program you're using? Was it Ableton or
FL Studio?
Oh, FL Studio. Okay.
Yeah.
And was it like you just downloaded it? Like, how did you find out about the program or really dive into it? Was it just people I mean, how you tell me how you got into it?
Yeah, it was, so this was like also when YouTube was like in its infancy, you know, like people who had like 800,000 subscribers were like the biggest people on the platform. So I used to watch like live videos of deadmau5, and he used to obviously I mean, I think he still does, like plays live with the laptop, right? He's got like all his MIDI controllers and everything into his laptop. And I remember, and I just remember like it's so vivid, just Googling like how to make music on a computer. And the first thing that came up was FL Studio, and I was like, right, I'll get the demo. Because I didn't even know about like torrenting at the time. Man, it was that long. It was like that sweet spot between like, remember LimeWire?
Oh yeah, sure.
It was between like that and then when uTorrent had like its big boom. So it was in that kind of like phase of like you could only really get programs off people who already had it.
Right.
But yeah, so I downloaded FL with the demo, and I think every hour or every 30 minutes it would like cut the audio. So, or you like couldn't save projects. So
man,
yeah, but I learned it, man. I got around it, and yeah, that's kind of where it all started. It's a really weird way of doing it, but yeah.
So you start creating your own beats on there, or writing like full on songs?
It was mostly like I would take MP3s of other people, and I would like sample like drums and basses and stuff, and kind of just work on my own arrangement of their songs. And I'd never release them or anything, but just to kind of familiarize myself with the program and how to arrange things. I did that for like 2-3 years, and then I learned about sound design and everything changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you learn about that? Did you go to school for sound design?
Nah, I'm entirely self-taught.
Okay.
In regards to like actual music production with guitar and stuff, I had lessons, but yeah, everything as I was learning, that's when YouTube, like I said, had more of its boom, and you know, more people were doing tutorials on YouTube and walkthroughs and things like that. So that definitely helped me kind of learn everything by myself. But yeah, it was really weird how it all happened. It was almost like it was like perfect timing in a way. But yeah, it's strange, very strange.
Did you then put what was your first like step, or like when did you start Tisoki? Was that later down the line, or like how quickly were you like putting songs up, or were you doing it on SoundCloud or anything like that? What was like the next step?
Yeah, I mean, I always had the alias,
Okay.
and it was just a word that I'd made up, and and even back then I knew that like when you Google something, you want your thing to be first, right?
Right.
And there was nothing on the internet under the same name, so I was like, and I'd seen guys like Maud Fustang. I don't know if you've heard of him, but like a few artists did the thing where they switched the letters in the words, so it's like Ford
Right.
Mustang and Maud Fustang, things like that, and that that obviously didn't really work in like SEO optimization.
Right.
So
Especially with Google, it's like, did you
yeah.
mean Ford Mustang?
So
And then it'll show
yes,
you 10 million Ford Mustangs.
exactly. So yeah, I always thought of that, but I'd always had the name, and I never, I kind of just kept it to myself. I didn't tell any friends or anything, and kind of just kept it under wraps. And then I eventually started uploading like some bootlegs to SoundCloud, and they didn't really get that much traction. Yeah.
Well, what was the first thing that you did that really started to catch some fire?
Uh there was a there was a Calvin Harris bootleg I did,
Mm-hmm.
and I put it on SoundCloud, and it hit 1,000 plays. I'm still good on a hard drive, and I took a screenshot of my SoundCloud profile with the 1,000 play marker on it, and I still got the screenshot from however many years ago it was. But that was the first thing, and I was so gassed. I was just so happy that I'd reached 1,000 plays on something. But looking back now, it's like that's cool. But at the time, I just remember being like, "Yes, this is I've made it.
Yeah,
I've
that's a
made it."
huge. I mean, well, now that you have like 3.5 million plays or more on songs, 5 million plays on songs, I guess 1,000 isn't really quite to that level. But I mean, when you're first getting there, that's still what a big moment.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
And from there, was it just like, okay, this has got 1,000 plays, I got to keep going? Like, how did you next? Like, what was your next advancement? Did you start like trying to DJ clubs, or like was it all still computer based at this point?
Uh, I mean, yeah, I really wanted to play clubs, and I really wanted to, just do everything that electronic music producers could do. But I mean, at the same time, I was still underage at this time. I couldn't even get into clubs.
Uh-huh.
And so I just kind of kept, uploading to SoundCloud, whether it was like bootlegs, not really much original stuff. I did a couple of things, and yeah, and just kept trying to keep consistent with it at the start. I think that was kind of the main thing that I strived for. And I did a couple of like parties, and like anytime a friend would be like, "Yo, we need a DJ for our party," blah blah, I'd always be like the first to try and get it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the real kind of first bigger things that started happening was when I was like around 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was able to, go to venues and play at venues. And by then, after 4 years of just learning, I guess, computer music in and out, I had a pretty good grasp on what I needed to do to make good songs.
Mm-hmm.
So again, yeah, like I keep going back to it, man. But it was, the more and more I think about it, it's just more perfect timing. Like the second I was able to legally go into these venues was around the time where I'd finally kind of understood how to actually make like proper music. And yeah, it's
You're kind of ready at that point.
yeah, exactly. And I don't think I would have it any other way. I
Mm-hmm.
think the way that it happened was very natural and not very forced. But yeah, that was when I started like hitting up venues, and I would be like cold emailing them, be like just very naive, just can I play? Like, here's my SoundCloud, and oh, it's so embarrassing thinking about it. But yeah, the funny thing was one of the venues that I'd relentlessly emailed to let me play
Uh-huh.
never got back to me, and then a couple of years later actually booked me.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's just a very very weird moment. And
did you call him out?
Yeah, dude, I mentioned it to him. I was like, yo, just search your emails from like 3 years ago. I was begging to play this place, and I played it, and it was just a very full circle moment.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. So did you start to make a name for yourself where, in Scotland, or were you traveling outside of Scotland to play these clubs?
Yeah, I was trying to do it like kind of just where I was. In the UK, you know, with friends, I'd still stay in touch with the people back from where I grew up. So kind of just like in both places, and I'm mostly in Scotland and in a city called Edinburgh, which is where a lot of like the music scene for Scotland was. And then and then kind of after that, I'd try and I did a couple of like shows in Belgium and in Paris, and then that's kind of when Europe started kind of catching on a bit, and I would be in Europe like every other week, doing shows and things like that, while still trying to keep that kind of not grassroots feel, but like I didn't want to just be like, I forget the UK, I'm gonna go do Europe. Much like, you know, when I came to America, I was never like, forget everywhere else, I'm just gonna do America. It was, I wanted to still stay connected with, you know, the people I grew up around and had supported me and worked with me from the start. So yeah, just kind of Europe and the UK was, before I came to America, was like my main focus points. And I did an Australia tour as well in 2016 as well, which was, you know, cool to do. But yeah, I mainly just focused on the UK because that's where my roots are. You know, that's where I feel like the most comfortable. But yeah, just Europe, UK, Australia, just grinding every weekend. I would always try and be somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did you come to America? How many years later?
It would have been a I want to say a year and a half after Australia. So I was doing like Europe and the UK from like, I don't know, like 2013 to, or like 2012, Jesus, like 2012 to like 2016, 2017, like just solid.
Okay.
And I did Australia in 2016 for the first time, and then 2017 is when I got my US visa, and I came here back and forth a few times towards the end of 2017, and then the start of 2018 is when I moved here, like full time.
Were you coming out here to play, or were you coming out here to work with different artists, or like what was your into the US?
Yeah, a bit of both, really. I mean, legally, my job description was to play shows. That's why my visa got, you know, approved, and I built up such an extensive touring history in other countries beforehand, that I was able to be granted access to, you know, work and live in America off those merits. But yeah, the first kind of couple of times here, I played a couple of festivals, and that's when I was living in the UK, so I'd come back and forth.
Okay.
And then, you know, towards the end of 2017, coming back and forth, I kind of just looked at it, you know, financially, and I was like, it's not cost effective to be spending all this money going back and forth.
Sure.
Yeah, like this money that I was spending on flights could go to rent somewhere.
Right.
And that's when I kind of made the ultimate decision to move here permanently at the start of 2018.
Okay. And then you moved to LA or Orange County?
I moved to LA.
Okay.
Yeah, did a couple of years in LA, and then moved to San Diego.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That's where I'm from.
Yeah, my fiance's family is actually from San Diego. So
what part, if you don't mind me asking?
We moved to like La Jolla, Torrey Pines area. Yeah,
right. Very nice. Right there by the beach.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then we moved to like San Marcos after that.
Okay. That's close to where I kind of was.
Yeah. And then some really like dodgy stuff went down in San Marcos. We were like pretty much like, it was like a shooting that happened, so we moved to Orange County.
Oh, good call. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was wild, bro. But we're all safe and healthy and
that's
and
good.
fine, so yeah.
That's pretty sketchy.
Yeah, we thought LA was sketchy, but
wow, that's crazy to hear about San Marcos being that way.
I know, bro. It's a shame. I think it's ever since the pandemic, you know, people are unfortunately getting desperate, and you know, desperate times call for desperate measures, and you know, a few other things had happened. We'd had some like stuff stolen and things like that. So
oh man. Oh, so you were living in San Diego during the pandemic?
Yeah,
oh wow.
we moved into our house in San Marcos like as it started, and were there until, you know, when everything shut down, and kind of had that as our base, and then yeah, all the bad stuff happened, so we moved up north again.
Good call. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So you aren't too far from me. I was in Rancho Bernardo.
Oh, there you go. RB. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
RB.
That's cool. That's really cool. So now, okay. Well, you had a huge song in 2018, Wobble. Right?
Yeah.
What was like the first song that you had that really kind of took off? Was it that one?
No, it was many years before that. It was me and an artist called Borgore collaborated on a remix for one of his songs, and that was kind of the first time that a big artist had you know, paid me attention.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm still good friends with him to this day, man. He's actually like, you know, one of like the realest people in the industry as far as I've met. But yeah, that was like 2016, and I always attribute that to like, you know, my first kind of big break, and notice outside of my own small kind of fan base at the time. But yeah, that was 2016, and then a few others between then, and then obviously Wobble. I mean, it's kind of like a joke song in a way. I never took it seriously, and then, you know, the way that the internet works, it just turned into a bit of a meme. But
but it blew up. I mean, it nearly has 4 million plays on Spotify.
Yeah, that's wild, huh?
I mean, that must have been wild for you to witness it all kind of happening.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you know, you go into releasing these records with a certain premonition or a certain way that you want them to be received. I think that's human nature, right? But I never knew that it would be so received in the way that it was, and it was just funny, man. Like I went into it like, yo, this is a funny song. Like, it's not very serious. Like, me and Christian like Crankdat, like the other guy. Yeah, the other collaborator on it. But like, we'll just make it like, it's like just a fun like club track. Like, send it around for people to play out, and then it just blows up on Spotify for no reason. It's just very strange. Like, you can never anticipate it, you know.
Sure. Christian's amazing. We had him on the podcast early on. And his story is funny. He was like a sports guy from like Ohio.
Wow.
Yeah, and now he's, you know, killing it in the EDM scene. But wow. So yeah, when did you meet him, or like how did your relationship form with him? Just meeting him at different festivals and stuff?
I don't think we've ever met in person, you know.
Oh, that was all done virtually.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, everything. You know, I played out his records for a short period of time. He played out my records for a short period of time. We followed each other on Twitter. He dropped me an iMessage, and then we just kind of worked on it over iMessage. And then I've still never met him, and I don't think we've actually spoken recently. But
that's so crazy.
It's just such a random like blip in time where like everything happened. We made this song. We didn't intend for it to be like successful. I mean, I don't know if like 4 million plays these days is successful, but like it turned into a meme.
It is. I could bet you there's millions upon millions of kids that would die to have that many plays on any of their songs.
And don't get me wrong, I'm very blessed and grateful, you know. But
sure,
yeah, it wasn't meant to be serious, and then it just happened to, you know, take a few people's liking, and it turned into like a meme, and then people were like making like stupid like funny pictures with it, and like I don't know, bro. It's just so random. Yeah, very random. You spend all this time like, you know, cultivating like a a story per se, or like, you know, collaborating with like songwriters and other collaborators, and you get a big studio and you're all in a writing atmosphere and you're like, yeah, these songs are great, and you put them out and they do well, but it's like a song that you made over iMessage in, I think we wrapped it in like 12 hours. Like a song that you made over iMessage gets more plays. I don't, you know, it's a weird world, especially with electronic music. So
That's funny. That's really
yeah.
funny. I didn't realize that you'd never even met him either. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Random.
Yeah. It's so strange.
Wow. Well, talk to me about this new record you have coming out. It's what, the zip code to where you grew up?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, you know, during the pandemic, at least, you know, I feel like we all felt kind of locked in. I mean, we were legally without putting it too harshly. And, I wasn't able to go back to the UK. You know, I was pretty much stuck. And
were you hoping to, like, so you weren't able to, like, what, see your family or anything?
No, I still haven't. It's been yeah, since the start of it. It's been wild. Thank God for FaceTime. But
right. I
yeah,
can't imagine that, man. I'm sorry. That sucks.
I mean, you know, these things happen. We're all thankfully, you know, touch wood, we're all in good health. That's kind of, you know, all I ask for. I think if something took a turn health wise within the family, it would be a very different situation. But you know, we're all making the best of it. But yeah, I think the ultimate feeling from it was just being stuck. And I think you know, I've never, from the past 6, 7, 8 years, I'd never really had a time where I'd not been traveling. And that part of like it's a very American thing to say, but like freedom, the part of, you know, but like the part of not having that freedom to just get on a plane and go wherever you wanted really kind of slapped me in the face. I know that's a, you know, a privilege for someone to be able to do that in the first place, but as something I was so accustomed to for nearly a decade, it really hit me hard, man. And I think just going from that and being so confined to essentially 4 walls, I'd never had the attention span before to think of an album. You know, it was always EPs, it was always singles, because I was always traveling. I was never really home for more than 3-4 days. So I just remember I just woke up one day and I was like fuck it, I'm just gonna make an album. Like I've got nothing better to do. I can't travel. I don't have any shows. I can't even really go outside without, you know, being uncomfortable. So I just kind of locked in, and the first kind of 3 months, 3-4 months of the pandemic, from like March, I just made all these demos, and I didn't even mean for it to, but the resounding kind of theme that transpired from working on the records was that I was kind of homesick, you know, and I feel like I'd lost the reason why I even started doing this, because being at the shows and listening to all this really obnoxiously like loud music, it influences you in a way where you come home and you're like, I've got to make music to keep up with the other records that other DJs are playing. You know, when you're in the show circuit and the touring circuit so much, that's such a heavy influence. So when that was taken away, I just made a load of music, and it slowly started coming to me. I was like, these are records that I'd wish I was able to make when I was like a kid in the UK, and with all of the influences from the UK just kind of coming out from just being focused on this one thing, I kind of felt it necessary to be like, I'm gonna name it, you know, the area code of where I was born, and I'm gonna make some of the visual, you know, a testament to where I grew up and my influences and things like that. And then that also led into like ultimately the sound of the records on the album. You know, a lot of it is like, there's like an old school dubstep record that's kind of a bit more modern day, and then there's a few like UK garage songs and just things like that. I think it really needed to happen. I don't think I would be myself or portraying a realistic version of myself if I made an album that wasn't kind of authentically me. And again, timing wise, I think it just happened to be, you know, the perfect time for it.
And you had, I mean, I wonder, like, like having that time and everything, is it something that you feel like you were able to like since you've never had that time to really like hunker down and write something that you like a full body of work?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I've never been able to even think about having that attention span to doing like
Right.
10 songs. It's always been like, oh, I'm at the airport, I've got to finish this one song, or I'm in a hotel, I've got to finish like this EP, or I'm, you know, blah 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 blah. Like it was just a very, it was also just a very weird learning curve to even
Mhm.
approach it in that new way.
Do you feel like because you weren't able to make it home to see your family or really grasp at the roots of your, where you grew up and everything, is it why you focus so much on this record, like, pulling from
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I think, you know, as cliche and cheesy as it is, like distance makes, the heart grow fonder.
Mhm.
And I think, being away from that, I was always, whenever I'd go back, I'd always be like a little bit immersed in the culture for like a month or a couple of weeks. Whenever I'd fly back previously, I'd turn on the radio and hear what's happening over there. But because I was so far away from that for so long, it was just weird. It just came to me, bro. Like I
Mhm.
wish I could like delve into it more and explain it properly, but it just came to me. And as weird as that is, it's just I genuinely think because I was just away from it for so long, my mind just kind of went into overdrive of all the things that I remember from when I was, growing up.
Uh-huh. For sure. I
Very
mean,
weird.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Because you were probably so, absorbed in like maybe American culture at this point, being here and
Exactly.
living here, and it does, and I'm sure that takes toll and influences on your music and working with certain people, and especially in the LA like EDM scene, maybe, and trying to
Yeah.
pull from where you grew up, maybe just having that. Okay, I'm stuck at home. There's no one I could really. Were you able to like? Were you working with anyone else, or was it basically just you working on it yourself? And was that different than your usual? I mean, more recent stuff?
Yeah. It was I mean it was mostly me. Um
Mhm.
I have a friend back home who is an incredible producer and songwriter, and he helped on a few of the records. But even then it was just like there's a, a few vocal features, and one of them is from the UK. I think I was just really yearning to like speak to people from the UK. Um but yeah, it was just very weird, man. It
Mhm.
was just something I was never used to in terms of trying to create a whole kind of, not, I wouldn't say story. I didn't put too much emphasis on creating a
Like
story throughout
like
the
like a
songs, but just
concept record?
yeah, but it was just so weird. I really just wanted to be home, and I think the only thing that I could even do was to make music that made me feel like I was home, if that makes
Right.
sense.
No, totally. That
Yeah.
makes total sense. And you had, Charity Vance on the record? She was, like, on American Idol, right?
Yeah. I didn't even realize that until we were friends for a while, and then I think my manager was like, "Yo, I need like charities, like social links to, for." I did a remix for her a couple of years ago.
Oh,
It was an Away record, and it was called Sleepwalker. Um, oh no, that was with a different vocalist. My apologies. When was it? It was recently, actually. Yeah, I did a remix for her, and my manager was like, "I need a social link," so I went on YouTube and searched her up, and the first thing that came up was.
American Idol.
And I was just like, "Oh, that makes sense." But
And,
yeah,
is that how you met her, is through the initial remix, and you just, dug her voice and put her on Sensitive?
yeah, she was kind of in the she knew people that I knew in LA, and I
Okay.
was and I had heard her voice on a few other records, not American Idol. Um
Right.
and then and then I
You
and
weren't
then
watching American Idol and were like, "That girl."
in 12 years time, in 12 years
That
time.
girl will be on my record.
Nah, 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 nah. I didn't even, yeah, I mean, no disrespect, I didn't even know who she was, but But yeah, I did the little remix for her. We've been friends, you know, we've worked on a few other records that just haven't come out.
Okay.
And then yeah, just we linked up in a studio I was using to finish off the album. It was really last minute actually, and she bought the sensitive vocal, and within a day we just finished it. It's just,
wow.
Again, it's just natural, bro. Like if something doesn't feel natural to me, and I don't feel like, or I feel like I have to force it, or there has to be a continued amount of effort that goes into it, kind of against my own will, I just don't do it. Which might be detrimental, but
Well, it makes sense.
Short.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to get behind it, if your heart isn't into it, it's like, why even move forward just to put something out? It doesn't make much sense.
Exactly.
So you got the record together. It comes out what, next week? Next Friday?
I think so. I'm not too sure.
Who knows? The days are so, I mean, nowadays it's like we've all been inside for almost nearly 2 years. It's like
crazy.
So crazy.
Absolutely insane.
Are you going to be able to, or do you have any hopes to perform anytime soon, or what was it looking like?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a couple.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did towards the end of 2020. I actually did one of those drive-in shows.
What was that like?
Really cool.
Really?
I really liked it. And did I do a couple? I think I did a couple actually. I did one in Denver, and I did one in Florida somewhere. But yeah, man, it was like to have that be like the first experience back after a year of not playing shows. It was actually really nice. And there's a guy in Denver called Dom who put on that drive-in. He's incredible promoter, incredible guy. And yeah, it was just really well put together. I think after so long away, I was also happy just to be able to be a part of providing for like the sound guys and the visual artists and stage techs and the companies who supply the sound system. It was just a very good feeling to know that we were all helping support the industry when
right.
no one was doing it. Like everyone was furloughed or like fired in a way. And yeah, it was just a very heartwarming moment. It was different because everyone's in pods in their cars away from you, like miles and miles away, but just to be in the presence of live music again, it was really cool.
That is cool. And I'm sure it was even more strange for an artist, like, I mean, in an EDM world of dance parties and now you have people like dancing in like little pods or like in their car, but that's still cool. At least you got to be there and play live, and it's almost probably some little bucket list thing that you never thought you'd ever need to check off.
Exactly. No one knew that it was ever going to happen. And then, promoters really just put their thinking caps on and pivoted. And I remember the very first ones were all in like drive-in movie theaters. They'd put the venues in because there would already be the infrastructure for a load of cars to be parked up. And that's in my head, that's genius. Like no one would have ever thought of that before. But here you are. Yeah, dope. So sick.
So you had a chance to do a couple of those, and like, what about actual parties coming up? Anything?
I think I do Vegas this weekend.
Oh wow.
Yeah, just like a random show, not like a part of a tour or anything. But because a lot of the kind of festivals and stuff, at least until August, September, are mostly like rebookings from last year.
Yeah.
The worst part was I had a headline tour last year that got cut in half because of obviously COVID. And because I was committed to that headline tour before COVID was even a thing, I had to like not go for any of the festivals because I was doing my own headline tour. And then what happened was all the festivals got rebooked to this year. But my tour, we didn't bother rebooking the rest of my tour to this year. So I'm kind of in a place where I'm like, all these festivals already had their lineups like a year ago, and I'm just kind of like sitting around doing nothing.
That is weird to me. Like with the festival lineups, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's like they didn't really change the artists much, and it usually changes with whatever is kind of popping right now. And it's like to see, you know, some of the headliners, you're like, okay, like I get it, but like I mean, I guess Lizzo would be an example of somebody like where she had that huge record in 2019. It was like, okay, 2020, she's gonna be, you know, the biggest thing. And it's like that record kind of came and went. And now she's the headliner of like Bonnaroo and all the, you know, Lollapalooza. And it's like, I'm sure they would love to have Olivia Rodrigo as the headliner now. You know what I mean? She wasn't even a thing yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's just throwing a bit of a spanner in the works, and
right.
Obviously everyone is contractually committed to these festivals. It's just I think 2022 is really going to be the time where, you know, even in the pop world, like the Kid Leroy blew up.
Right. Oh yeah.
In 2020, like, and I can, you know, if he keeps going where he's going, which is up, he's gonna be like headlining Coachella in 2022.
Right.
You know, like
sure.
But yeah, I don't know. Like this year has been kind of like a bit of a, I don't know. I've not paid too much attention to the billings or the placements on festivals, because 90% of it is just rebooks from last year, and then the 10% are people who are stuck outside of the US, and then they just have to get like last minute replacements, you know?
Right. And a lot of people, I mean, in Canada too, like a lot of those people can't even come down here to tour and play. So
wild, absolutely wild. Yeah.
We'll see. Hopefully everything opens up, you know, soon enough, not just certain countries.
Honestly.
Wow. Well, dude, congratulations on the record. I can't wait to hear it all the way through. And
thank you.
Know, next Friday comes out, and I appreciate you doing this.
I appreciate your time, man. Yeah, thank you for having me.
I have one more question for you before I let you go, Bradley. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah. Keep at it. Don't be a dickhead. And be respectful of who you talk to and which circles you move in, because in 5 years' time, someone you might be digging on might be the biggest artist in the world, and you never know. So just, you know, I think music aside, music is you know, you can learn and adapt and change how you make music and styles, and that is always going to be changing. But respect and morals within the music industry go so far. And I think just drop the ego. Just be a good person and respect everyone around you, whether they have 100 followers or 1 million followers. You know, that's all I have to say on that.